after a crystalline invader spreads its adamantine infection. A creature is seemingly birthed from the ether, a blob forming around a pair of glowing eyes. That creature is Squish, who you will guide through Semblance's moldable viscoelastic world to stave the infection and beat back the hardness that's transformed the once soft and squishy world to one that's punctuated by shards and spikes. That's as much explicit exposition as you're going to get, but it's largely unimportant window dressing. Semblance is a game that's more about the how rather than the why. Platformers are typically about nailing pixel-perfect jumps with grace and precision. They're about taking the character you've been given and moving them through predetermined levels within the confines and rules of that digital world. Semblance from South African developer Nyamakop is about breaking those rules. The game's already celebrated, and for good reason. It's the first wholly South African-made game to appear on a Nintendo platform. It's won numerous awards, including one for excellence in design. Those plaudits are of course well earned because many of Semblance's best bits are frighteningly clever, well-designed stuff. It's also visually quite lovely, though it's yet another minimalist indie platformer in a sea of minimalist indie platformers. Its purple, teal and green pastel hues are intriguing and beautiful. Everything looks pliable and soft and even noodly, but everything's a little subdued and somber, like a dark mirror of Loco Roco's colourful, effervescent world. In it, you play as Squish, and Squish can charge into and reshape the world. By bashing into a platform from below, a malleable section is terraformed and becomes raised, allowing Squish to jump higher than he might have otherwise. By doing the same from above, you create a trough that might be useful for, say, blocking another character's movement, so you can zoot past and pick up one of the collectible orbs that mark your progress. By ramming into a platform from the side, you'll move it left or right. All of this opens up some pretty clever opportunities for fiendish puzzles that, while not especially taxing, especially in retrospect, are sometimes cause for a bit of chin scratching. The joy in puzzle games really comes in that elusive aha moment. And Semblance is stuffed with them, especially later on as the game starts introducing different elements. While Squish may not gain more abilities beyond jumping, bashing into things and molding the scenery, and also magically undoing all that deformation, there are things in the world that change how you'll make your way through it. There are red beams, and should one of your terraformed masses hit that red beam, it'll automatically spring back into its original shape and position. The elasticity of that springing might even serve a purpose. There are glowing areas that prevent Squish from charging, which means you're unable to deform the platforms in front of you. Later you're able to change Squish's shape, changing movement speed, jump height, and of course later on there'll be moments where you have to use everything that you've learnt. There aren't many deadly obstacles for Squish, because those crystalline shards are that you'll find in your platforming. They're instantly deadly, and they're lasers and a couple of infrequent enemies, but death usually happens because you've mistimed a jump or misplaced one. Mercifully, all death does is reset Squish's position, keeping whatever deformations you've enacted on the world. There are of course rules that govern just how reshapeable everything is. Once you've moved a platform, you can no longer change its shape and vice versa, which means you have to come up with more creative solutions than you originally thought. Conversely, some of the puzzles that seem to be needlessly complex are a lot simpler. You'll go to bed taxed by some horrible puzzle only to try it later and figure out that it was actually pretty easy. Also, while you're encouraged to break the game's world, it doesn't seem like there are many solutions to puzzles. It just feels like you're kind of hacking away at these platforms. There are some problems though. A couple of odd glitches. Squish often gets stuck in walls. There's even a menu option to reset positions, which is a bit telling, I think. There are also some issues with pacing. You might jump from a puzzle that's mindlessly easy, so basic mechanic, collect an orb and you're done, and then you'll move on to one that's a lot more challenging, and then right after that it'll just be easy again. And it's really only towards the end of the game, once you've unlocked the final world, where Semblance gets really challenging, and you have to use everything you've learned, fast reflexes and the lasers, and you have to jump around. And that's when it's at its best. The pacing aside though, it's a delight to play, even though there's not very much of it. It's something you can beat in a couple of hours. But in those hours there are moments of real brilliance, showing just how good that concept is. I can't help but feel that the concept's ultimately being underutilized. I sat playing the game with my daughter for much of that time. We worked on puzzles together and bashing around platforms and trying to figure out solutions, and then once it was over she turned to me and said, "Is that it?" And that's kind of how I felt as well. It was a whole bunch of fun to play, but at the end of it, I really wanted more, which I suppose is a good thing, and I genuinely and sincerely hope that we get more. That's Semblance. I've enjoyed it a lot. I'm still kind of debating on what to score it, although I find, actual marked scores to be a bit silly, necessary evil. I'm still debating on that score, but it's going to be around 7.5. We'll see. Thank you. That's Semblance. It's a lot of fun to play, and it's out today on Switch and PC and Mac. That's today. That's July 24th, and you really should get it. It's definitely something that's worth playing.